Well, good afternoon, Michiganders. It is Tuesday, March 28th, 2023. And this, of course, is Tuesday with Tom, Michigan's only weekly podcast where we answer your questions about estate planning and estate settlement in Michigan, and we don't send you a bill. I'm your host, Tom Doyle, estate planning attorney, lifelong Michigan resident, and ambassador for all things good in this great state of Michigan. Welcome to today's program. Well, missed a couple weeks in here for a number of reasons, but we're back. And just a reminder about the last episode, it's time to spring clean your estate plan. So if springtime, you're thinking about cleaning your house, I know I'm anxious to get yard work going, etc., I invite you to listen to the last episode that was broadcast about the importance of spring cleaning your estate plan. Today's episode, certificates of deposit as investments and what is a CD ladder. But please remember, what I'm about to discuss during the program is, as always, for educational purposes. It is not intended to be legal or financial or investment advice. You need to work with your attorney, financial advisement, investment advisor, tax advisor, etc. to determine what is appropriate for you and your planning. Certificates of deposit as investments and what is a CD ladder given today's market uncertainty, concerns about what the Fed's doing, concerns about what's going on with the banks, concerns about recession, concerns about rising inflation, or do we have inflation under control, and in the back of all this, perhaps something good that is happening are interest rates on bank accounts, and CDs in particular have been rising. So now many of you might be looking at your investments and thinking, geez, I don't like the uncertainty of the market, or maybe I ought to consider some sort of certificate of deposit, some more secure type investment is thought about, or maybe you're just going to make that part of your overall investment portfolio. So if you're thinking about CDs as part of your investment portfolio, that's what today's program is all about. In fact, back in October 2018, I originally aired an episode on certificates of deposit as investment and what is a CD ladder. Now, what's changed since then a little bit is the rates that's being paid on CDs significantly higher than what was being paid back at that time. But the concept of the discussion about certificates of deposit and the idea of what a CD ladder is, which is used to increase the overall yield from your CD portfolio, are as relevant today in 2023 as they were in 2018. So what I'm simply going to do today is now replay that segment of that Tuesday with Tom podcast. But before I do that, just a reminder, though, that Amanda and I, of course, would be honored to have the opportunity to help you protect your loved ones by putting together your estate plan or amending a current estate plan, or perhaps assisting you in settling an estate. And as always, we now have in-person consultations at our new East Lansing office. We have virtual consultations via Zoom or telephone. All of that information on how to schedule a meeting with us and work with us is available through doylelawpc.com. Again, we have our legal store. If you're just looking for an individual document, perhaps all you need is an updated certificate of trust. The legal store is also available at Doyle Law PC, and it gives you the ability to order documents through the website. Actually, they can even be ordered through our Facebook page if you went to the Doyle Law PC Facebook page. So we would be happy to help you. So if there's anything that we can do to help you out, please visit doylelawpc.com for more information. and to schedule a consultation. Certificates of deposit as investments, and what is a CD ladder? We also have an idea of investment risk. Certain investments that we have risks associated with them. Perhaps they will change over time, perhaps not to the positive but to the negative. We might have a risk of loss of principal, we might have a risk of loss of income, and there's a general loss that we have if our investments don't keep up with inflation. If inflation is higher than the return on our investments, we're losing money there as well. So we all have some general idea that different investments, whether they are stocks or bonds or real estate or precious metals or CDs or savings accounts, whatever they happen to be, have certain risks associated with them. And obviously, one of the things that you're trying to do is match up your risk tolerance, that is what's important to you by way of risk, with the different investments that you have. And of course, different risks are going to be associated with different assets. Stocks, as we've seen over the last month, stocks do and can go down. Bonds can and do sometimes lose value. Income, perhaps from savings accounts or CDs, might not keep up with inflation. And surprisingly, as we all learned during the housing crash, even real estate can go down. So one of the things that you're always trying to do, again, is to understand the risks that your investments have and make sure they match up with what your risk tolerance is. Well, a lot of elder clients that we work with look at having CDs or certificates of deposit. Why? One, oftentimes that we hear from our clients is they like the security. They do not have risk, for example, that stock does. They're not subject to stock market loss. Also, they're pretty simple. It's a pretty simple strategy to have CDs from a bank. And I give an example of a client, Dorothy, whose husband had CDs during his lifetime. When the CDs renewed, he'd always look in the newspaper to see what the current rate was. He'd shop around locally, find out what the best rate was for the time that they would renew, and that was basically his portfolio management. Well, when he died, someone convinced her to set up a brokerage account, and in that brokerage account, she had invested in stocks and mutual funds. And what Dorothy didn't understand is the risk of loss that she was now subject to if the market went down. It turns out in the end that she didn't really need the income. It wasn't a matter where she needed to grow her portfolio, but what was primarily important to her was to preserve the principal. So she spent every month, she'd get these statements from her brokerage firm, trying to understand all the different investments that she had, and was quite frankly spending way too much time on a monthly basis worrying about what was going on with her portfolio. And upon reviewing the statements, what appeared to be clear was the broker was churning the account, unfortunately, doing a lot of trades in the account, earning a lot of brokerage fees, which was not to her benefit. So she needed, in my estimation, and a lot of other people's estimation, a more simple investment strategy. Certificates of deposit. Another thing to think about with the CDs is that an account with a bank that is FDIC insured, that's the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or if it's a credit union, that'll be the National Credit Union Insurance Fund for Credit Unions. those provide security because if, in fact, the bank goes under, as we all know, FDIC or NCUIF is going to step in, is going to replace funds up to $250,000 per depositor. Your brokerage firm doesn't do that for you. If the stock goes away tomorrow, no one is replacing the value of that stock, which is another reason a lot of clients like to deal with banks and CDs because of the FDIC insured. Now remember, banks don't have to be FDIC insured, so you want to make sure if you're dealing with a bank that they are so that you have that protection. But in general, that protection is going to give you $250,000 per depositor. So if you're a single, you have multiple accounts at one bank, the total of all those accounts is insured up to $250,000. If they are joint accounts, each co-owner share of the joint accounts at the same banks are added together, and each joint owner has $250,000. And if you're dealing with a revocable trust owned by the same person, accounts at the same bank are added together, and the owner is going to be insured up to $250,000 per beneficiary. So there is some protection that FDIC, or if you're in credit union, the appropriate insuring agency is going to provide to you. Something else that a lot of people don't realize with CDs too is you don't have to buy local. You don't have to go to whatever bank happens to be in the local community. You can essentially go online through a site such as bankrate.com and locate CDs that are available through banks throughout the United States. It gives you a much broader selection of CDs to choose from than you might have in your local community. And another option with CDs, if you want to, is you don't even have to go buy CDs in your own name. You could have CDs inside a brokerage account, what would be called a brokered CD. So example, Ameritrade account, Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, all of those different accounts, you can have CDs inside those accounts where you're not running around trying to find CDs on your own. You're looking at relying upon your broker to find the CDs for you. Now, a little bit of difference. So if the CD that you buy at the bank are what are usually traditional certificates of deposit, a brokered CD, though, which are bank CDs that are bought by brokers and resold, some of those might have actually fees associated with, sometimes pretty stiff fees if you're going to cash them out early. Normally with a CD that you buy at your bank, if you need to cash it in early, you're going to get affected by loss of some of the interest on it. But a brokered CD, if you have to cash that early, you might actually find yourself subject to some fairly significant additional fees for having to terminate the CD early. So something that you need to think about when you're looking, do I want to go buy all these on my own, or do I want to work through my broker to have the CDs? The other thing that can happen with FDIC insurance is if you bought a CD from a bank and that bank fails, your deposit insurance benefit will probably arrive more quickly because it's going to go right to you. On the other hand, if you have a brokered CD from a bank and that bank fails, now the deposit insurance might end up being paid to the broker, who then has to turn around and distribute the funds for the investor. So there can be a little bit of time delay perhaps involved with a brokered CD. You're still protected, but it might take longer to get your money. Something to think about whether you want to invest CDs on your own or use your broker to do that. And one other thing consideration, if you're going to use a brokered CD, make sure that the deposit account records reflect that the broker's role is an agent for you, That way, each client who owns a CD can qualify for at least the $250,000 in deposit insurance. So it's just a matter of making sure that you're clear on how the broker is associated with the CDs that they're buying for you. Now, of course, there are disadvantages with CDs. Pretty low current rates. Even though rates have been ticking up over the last couple years, they are still very low compared to what they were a number of years ago. Another consideration, a CD might be called early by the bank. You might go buy a 5-year CD, and perhaps after a few years, the bank decides to call the CD and pay it out. You're not going to get your entire 5-year time frame that you thought of by way of the investment. Because of the low rates of interest, you have to be concerned, is the interest going to be keeping up with inflation? We still have a pretty low inflation rate, but it might turn out, if the rates are too low, that you're going to lose money in the end because you're not keeping up with inflation. And another consideration is brokered CDs. They might end up costing you more because perhaps you're going to have to pay a fee to the brokerage company, but something to be considered. So if, though, you're going to look at having CDs, one of the things, obviously, that you want to do is maximize the yield. That's where the concept of what we call a CD ladder works to increase the yield on your CD portfolio. And it's based upon this concept. For example, a 5-year CD generally is going to earn more than a 6-month CD, and probably more than a 1-year CD. So if I look at today on CD rates on bankrate.com, which is a site on the internet that tracks CD information. For example, today, a 5-year CD you can get that will pay 3.57%. A 6-month CD, on the other hand, is only paying 2.25%, a full percentage point less than the 5-year CD. A 1-year CD is currently paying 2.74%, again, less than the 5-year CD. And a 3-year CD, as example, paying 3.05%, which is still less than the 5-year CD. But the problem is this. What you really don't want to do is go lock all your money up for 5 years. You could look and say, why don't I just go buy 5-year CDs and lock in that maximum rate? And the problem with that strategy is we are in a time of increasing interest rates. So in all likelihood, a 5-year CD a year from now is going to be paying more money than a 5-year CD today. So the approach that you take, rather than just going out and buying all 5-year CDs, or rather than going and buying 1-year CDs and just letting them roll over every year, is to set up what's considered a ladder. And oftentimes they're going to be in perhaps a 3 or 5-year ladder. So what would a 3-year ladder be? If you're going to do a 3-year ladder, what you would do is you would start out. You take, let's say you've got $15,000 that you can invest. You would take that $15,000 and you would say, all right, here's what I'm going to do. Today, I'm going to go out and buy $5,000 worth of 1-year CDs. I'm going to buy $5,000 worth of 2-year CDs. And I'm going to buy $5,000 worth of 3-year CDs. So I've got a mixed portfolio, 1-year, 2-year, 3-year. Then, as those 1-year CDs mature a year from now, I will replace those with 5-year CDs. And as the 2-year CDs mature in 2 years from now, I'll turn around, take that money, and I will put that into 5-year CDs. And at the end of the 3 years, you now have all CDs in 5-year increments, but you've got a 1/3 of them renewing each year. In case you need the money, or if interest rates starts going up, you can reinvest in additional 5-year CDs that, on this concept, will be generating more money because it's going to be paying a higher interest rate. So the idea is to start, take your investment, divide it into 3 parts, but after the 3rd year, you'll now all be in 5-year CDs if that's a strategy that you're going to be doing, or 3-year CDs if that's a strategy. You need to look at what's the better rate of return on the CDs. The concept of a 5-year ladder essentially starts the same way. Take your investment, divide it into 5 parts, and in year 1, have 1-year CDs. Take the next chunk, put it in 2-year CDs, the next in 3, the next in 4, and the next in 5. And then every year, when the 1 years come up, you'll renew those with 5 years. When the 2 come up, you renew them with 5 years. But the idea, again, being at the end of 5 years, all of your CDs are going to be invested in 5-year CDs. So go back, a 3-year ladder. Normally, you're going to be working with 3-year CDs as the main part of your portfolio. 5-year ladder, you're going to be mainly working with 5-year CDs. You're going to have a combination of those. But the idea is, rather than spending all your money now and locking all the money now, by laddering it, you'll be renewing things and replacing them with higher rate CDs. Now, if we look at Bankrate.com and the information that they have there on CDs as an example, if you took $10,000 today and put them in 1-year CDs and rolled them over every year, after 5 years, you would have interest income of $1,447.16. That's based upon the current interest rates. If you took that same $10,000 and started a 5-year $10,000 CD ladder, at the end of that same period of time, you would now have $1,791.93, an increase of $344.77 simply by laddering the CDs. There's no greater risk to you. They are all still FDIC insured. You've simply taken the time to come up with a ladder strategy that in the end generates more dollars for you. So if you're going to be investing in a CD portfolio, either as an entire part or even part of your investment strategy, consider the advantages of laddering the CDs. Talk to your broker or your financial advisor if you have one about setting up a laddered CD. You can go to the Bankrate.com site. They actually have a ladder calculator where you can put in how much money you're investing and over what time frame you're investing, and they will make recommendations on the website for what would be appropriate ladder for you. Another alternative, let's say you have a bond portfolio. A lot of seniors are going to have bond portfolios as part of their investment strategy. You can do the same concept with bonds. You can ladder your bonds so that you have bonds coming up regularly for renewal. The idea being the same as a CD, that bonds likely are going to be going up over in time. So by laddering the bond portfolio, you will end up maximizing greater returns for yourself. Tuesday with Tom has been brought to you by the estate planning attorneys at Doyle Law PC. To learn how we can help you with your estate plan or with settling a loved one's estate, please call us today at 517-323-7366. That's 517-323-7366.